There's a break in the rain. Let's get this done. The melting point of calcium is about 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's a reactive metal that forms lots and lots of compounds. That's why it's biologically significant. And it forms a dark oxide nitride layer when exposed to air, and it's a metal, and it looks shiny. Archaeologists, in quotes, and then eventually Petron et al., meaning nobody put their full name here and there's no link to the actual study, said fragments of vitrified glassy material containing traces of fatty acids common to triglycerides in the human brain, along with human hair components, that's found also in human hair, were extracted from only one cranium of one victim, first excavated in the 60s from the Herculaneum area, where that were from the Vesuvius volcano eruption from AD 79, the year 79 AD. Only one. It only needs 1500 degrees for you to get calcium slag. This is called calcium slag. When you do metalworking, when you make metal in the old days, they do all sorts of mystical things. Eye of bat, dog of newt, blah, blah, blah. Your mama. And they'd throw it into the pot and burn it while it screamed or whatever to make power iron. But the fact is that the stuff that came off, the slag, in some cases was retained and experimented with because it was a result of it. You can find slag material in slag piles from metal processing that wouldn't look any different. But anyway, there should have only been glycerol and fatty acids, which also they did find, by the way. They found other things. What they found was a strange thing they haven't seen before, and we don't use bizarro bullshit, mystical bullcrap when we make steels anymore. Nobody does. Even in primitive areas when they make metals and refine them. And at enough of a temperature, if it's extended for several hours, like 3.5 in this case, anything, including a living person, if it's not actually ignited and burning, if it's being baked at high temperature, aka think not an oven, but a kiln or a blast furnace, if you could do it in a rarefied atmosphere, you would get materials in elemental combinations separating out in different patterns. Obviously, the DNA shouldn't be retained, but they found some of that too. But if you have that kind of set of conditions, if it's encased and under pressure, these things will just sort of sift themselves out. The Vesuvius volcano baked some people to death and turned one's brain to glass. Now, it's not actually glass because it doesn't contain silica. Therefore, this is a bullshit story by scientists. Well, it's vitrified. That doesn't mean glass. When you have scientists that are archaeologists, but they misuse wording, I don't listen to them ever again. What was the metal? What was the content of it? Did it have metallurgical characteristics? What is the elemental composition of it? If you use the word glass and it has no silica or silicates or anything normal glass-like, you're misusing the English fucking language. Stop doing that. Next, fulgurite. Sintered, vitrified, and or fused soil, sand, rock, and organic material can occur. And other sediments. But it's mostly sedimentary and it's mostly, basically rock and dust. By the way, except for what comes out of you and collects in certain unpleasant areas, most of the ground is actually minerals. And if you blast it with enough heat, instantaneously, it will melt. It's nothing mysterious. Sometimes this forms when lightning discharges into the ground as tubes, clumps, or masses, or if a power line falls on it. I know about that, and I've actually gone through that stuff. And what you get is a mix of materials that you wouldn't want to ever try to sift through. But it sort of looks like glass. But, well, that's not a really bad analog, is it? A billion watts hits for 1 millisecond, and everything in the ground turns to glass. Well, not really, but it does melt anything that can melt at that temperature pretty quickly. If these tales of biological transmogrification are verified by future research, we would have something that's interesting with one person out of thousands who died during a volcano. Okay, here's the problem. They just admitted they didn't verify any of this. This is bullshit because they released a study before it was verified. Now, the body was found in the 60s. And the work has been reviewed, and people say, well, basically, No. As for volcanic lightning hitting a person who was in a bed in their house, no. Because they would have seen traces of lightning at other places. The building, some of the components, and the bed were still visible. You'd see other things. Also, even if the body was buried in Pompeii, it would show a stripe pattern from the bow shock in the tissue, and you'd see that, that tree effect that you don't ever want to find on a person because, oh my God, the story they may have to tell you. And not fulgurite, but it's a similar thing. And do bones do this? Bones are high calcium, of course they would, and they have a conductive path in the middle. And if the bow shock, if the shock wave of it is enough to contain it under pressure, this will pressure fuse everything too. Sort of like shock diamonds from an impactor. But at this point, all that's needed would be around maybe 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for a short period of time and a sustained temperature above, let's say, 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit to cause a lot of, maybe they don't even know that they're looking at people, to separate out and sort of smelt themselves into whatever. Again, what was being described and shown on the screen looks a whole shit ton like calcium slag material. Pretty common material. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.